Hello, avid readers, book nerds, and casual observers, and welcome to the Read Along brought to you by the Lit Round Table. I'm Joseph.
And I'm Anna, and today we're talking about The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie, and this is our final week.
It's the wrap-up.
It's the wrap-up.
The epic finale.
So you should have finished reading the book before you listen to this. If you have not finished the book, do not listen to this yet. Come back and see us after you finished it. Because spoilers do be ahead.
Yes. Yes, and really quick, before we get into the actual book, we can announce the next book that we're going to read, which is
The Light of the Midnight Stars by Rena Rossner.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
This was voted on by our Patreons, and this is the book that was decided upon. So if you want to get in on that voting action, visit our Patreon, become a member.
Yep.
So, yeah,
And
we're
then
excited.
once that next book wraps up, there will be another poll, and I will choose the entries for that one. It'll be my turn to compile a list. So yeah, be on
we'll
the
be
lookout
going
for
back
that.
to Grimdark. So if you really,
No, not necessarily.
I'm just teasing.
My list will probably have the second book of Lies of Loch-Lamora or The Gentleman Bastards.
I mean,
but
that one will have my vote because I want to read the second book of that one.
yeah.
And I know we have several people on YouTube that would appreciate us doing that one too. But
Yeah, that's been by far the most popular series. But anyway, The Blade itself. Let's talk about that.
yes. So the first chapter was chapter 42, Back to the Mud. Disturbing.
Yeah.
But not
Sad.
surprising.
No, it went exactly the way I thought it would.
I was like, this is not going to go well. And it didn't. So, so this is a Dogman chapter.
Yep. So we knew that Forley was going to go and try to talk to Bethard and company, his regime about the Flathead situation.
Right.
And nobody thought that was going to go well, Forley included.
Yeah. Well, so Dogman... Okay, so Forley is like the weakest of the group, right? He's clearly the least advantaged. And one of the lines that Dogman thinks in his internal dialogue that I wrote down is that sometimes weakness is a better shield than strength. And so I think even though everyone kind of knew this wasn't going to go super well, I think Dogman was still holding on to hope that like, well, maybe it'll be fine. Because Forley's not an imposing person.
Yeah, and he's super non-threatening. But I think in the north, that's more, it's a very dog-eat-dog world, kill or be killed. And I don't think that the gentle demeanor did him any favors going into the lion's den. But I think
it would have ended the same for any of them.
Yes.
Honestly.
Absolutely. The only difference is how many people they would have killed in the process of dying. Which Forley was probably a big goose egg, but that's okay. Our gentle boy was not cut out for the cruelty of the North.
No.
But him and Dogman did have a kind of heartwarming moment talking about courage, where Forley was talking about how terrified he was and how, well, can't have courage without fear. And Dogman, I forget exactly what he responded with, but he basically agreed. It's like, yeah, you're right. And you must be the most courageous out of all of us.
Yeah.
No, it was a good moment. It was a really good moment. And
it was.
And then Forley had the, well, guys, it's been great. And everyone's like, shut up, you're going to come back. And I'm just like, no, he's not.
But even the silent one, is it Black Daw that's like usually pretty quiet?
Black Daw is, I think so.
Even he spoke up as Forley was leaving and was like,
Yeah.
Good luck.
Or is it Grim? I don't remember.
I can't remember. One of the super quiet ones actually said something, which is pretty unusual as he walked away.
So then we move on to the actual exchange where Three Trees is standing on a bridge where Forley was supposed to tell the Bethard people to meet him. Dogman and Grim have their bows out and they're like ready to shoot people down if there's an issue. Black Dow and the Thunderhead guy are ready to like jump in in melee to fight people if need be also. And
Mm-hmm.
then the Bethid people roll up on the bridge with a cart and a bunch of guys on horseback to meet Three Trees. And
They keep trying to get Three Trees to get in the cart. Come on, just
yeah,
get in the cart. You can't walk. We'll get you back to the castle, or
yeah,
it's not
you're
really
an
a
old
castle.
man. We're just looking out for you.
Mm-hmm. And he's
Yeah.
pretty resistant, rightly so.
Mm-hmm. He's like, I'm not going anywhere till you show me Forley. Tell me where Forley is. And they're like, well, we were gonna wait to do this later, but yeah, here he is. And then throw a bag at him.
Well, they said he's in the cart, but, and then they throw a bag at him.
Mm-hmm.
And
Rest in pieces.
yes. And then Dogman just starts shooting.
Yep. And
He's
screaming.
decided that negotiations have ended. And he goes into a rage. Totally understandable. Totally fair.
Yep. He starts shooting. Grim starts shooting. Three Trees starts fighting. Thunderhead goes in the rear and starts carnage. Like they're talking about how they tried to block his blows, but he basically just blew straight through people's shields and just demolished people. Like he's like a giant or something. So yeah, and Black Dow was in there too. Yeah, so it basically devolved into a big mess of them having to kill all these people.
Yeah. Three Trees wanted them to keep Bad Enough, who's like the head guy.
Yeah.
His alive.
Nickname Bad Enough.
Yeah. And Dogman chases him down and is in shock. Dogman is clearly in shock.
Yeah.
And he kills Bad Enough without really realizing that he's done it. And then Three Trees is mad. And then they have a conversation about how, because Three Trees' whole like argument was like, in order to negotiate, we have to have some kind of collateral, and now we don't have any because we killed them all.
Yeah.
And the other guys are like, we're beyond the way of the old things. Like that wasn't how this was going to go down anyway. So it doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
And so after they all kind of come out of the bloodlust, they decide to head south to fight alongside the Union because they will do anything to fight Bethid because they hate him now. Because of what they did to Forley. So
kind of an enemy of my enemy is my friend situation.
Yes. And I think they're pretty desperate to get the Flathead situation under control. And they've decided that clearly the North is not going to assist with this situation. So
no.
Or they can't deal with it until they get the Bethid situation figured out. So
and then they do they have a nice moment burying Forley.
Yeah.
And they all kind of say some words, and even Black Dow is like, he like leans down and touches the ground and says, "Back to the mud." And Dogman is like, he thought he saw a tear dripping off his nose, but he's like, no, it must be the rain because it's raining out.
And it's on my face too. Like,
yeah,
they're all crying basically. Yeah.
Poor Forley. So to them, they're down Logen and they're down Forley. So their group is just getting whittled down. But yeah, so that was Back to the Mud. So that we don't come back to them for the rest of the book. So that just sets them up for the future installment. They're heading down to fight with the Union against Bethid and his forces. So that's where they're headed.
We'll see how they're received. I mean, we won't. In this read along, but I'm sure in the next book that's addressed. So the next chapter is chapter 43. I said that funny. Chapter 43.
43.
Called Misery. And this is a Jizzle chapter.
Yep. It sure is.
Very fitting for his chapter to be called Misery.
Yeah.
He's
such a baby.
Such a baby.
But it didn't go the way I thought it would, but I should have seen it going this way. Like, I should have expected this to be the way it was, where Artie would meet up with him, he would see how beat up she was, and be distressed over it. I knew that was going to happen, but I should have realized that she would lie and not say that it was her brother.
And that he would believe her.
Yeah, well, okay, he's naive enough. Like,
He is. He's dumb enough to not
I'm not
second
surprised.
guess.
I'm not
But
surprised that he believed her when she said she fell and hit her face. Like,
right. Yeah. Um yeah, that's pretty much what happens in the first part of the chapter. And then he professes that he will never forget her. Um and then she says that she will wait for him, which is
yeah,
interesting.
it was actually, it's almost like he's fighting so hard, like, against his humanity. Like, he's been so indoctrinated with this whole, like, elitist crap of, my blood is superior. I could never be with her. She's a peasant. Um, what about my station? Oh, it would never work. He doesn't even want to hold her hand. He doesn't even want to
Right.
be, like, affiliated with her in public. Like, he's afraid that people will see them and find out. And then it's just slowly, like chinking away at his armor, and he finally just breaks down and goes, "Yeah, I love you,"
Yeah.
which was, it
Yeah.
was a good moment. I'm just like, finally, like,
Yeah.
like, man, you've got a lot of character development to go here, because this.
Yeah, because even once he's on the ship later, he's like, I don't know why I told her to wait for me or why I let her say she'd wait for me, because what is she waiting for? We can never be together. I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
dude, what is wrong with you?
there's just so much elitism that needs
I
to
mean,
get
I
on.
know what's wrong with him.
Yeah, so much to unpack,
Yeah.
but um, but he says that because, well, in the beginning of it, part of the language, he was like, I know I'm an ass. Like, I know I am, but
Yeah.
I can't stop thinking about you. I think about you all the time. I love you. And then she was like, huh, yeah, you're an ass.
Yeah. Yes.
It was a funny moment. And then she was like,
It
yeah,
was.
I'll wait for you. And then
Mm-hmm.
he talks about how, like, she has so much power over him, and, like, he's just so desperate for her affection and approval and all this stuff, and he's, like,
Yeah.
ashamed of himself for like how he's feeling and all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, you love her. Just love each other. It's not that hard.
Man, it's like classism is a disease or something.
Yeah, it
Um,
really is.
yeah,
But man, they're exhausting.
they are. They are. But they're gonna have some time apart for a while, so.
They will. They will.
But not the way you might think, because he's on the ship, getting ready to sail off to the north.
To die for king and country.
Yes, and he's seeing her everywhere. Like, he's seeing all these people on the dock and, like, in the port, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, is that Artie?" And it's obvious that she's not there. But then a night herald comes for Jezel because he's being summoned.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta turn my pages on my notes. To see the High Justice. Which he's befuddled by, but you go where they say. So he goes to meet with them, and Baez is also there, which irritates the heck out of Jezel because he hates that guy and finds him to be very annoying.
Yeah, it's funny how he's trying so hard to just forget about everything that happened in the House of the Maker. Like, he wants to forget that ever happened, but it's impossible to, because the House of the Maker is just so big, and it's like such a
And
part
it's right
of
there.
such a part of, like, the skyline of the city. He, like, can't put it out of his mind. And then Baez is there, and he's like, "Oh, come on, get away from me, you freak, wizard!" It's amusing.
It is. And then we find out that Baez wants Jezel to go with him on an adventure because they're short a man, whatever that means. And he's an excellent choice because he's the winner of the contest.
Mm-hmm.
And Jezel basically wishes he had never participated in that contest because it has just caused a mess for him.
Has ruined his life.
And he tries to decline, and he's worried about all of his things being on the ship. And they're like, "Oh no, we already took care of that. We got your stuff off the ship. It's fine."
He's like, "What about my men? I'm their commander. We'll find another commander. It's fine.
No big deal."
You're going with Baez."
Mm-hmm. And then Baez says that they're going to the edge of the world and back, which I thought was like an interesting. It sounds very similar to There and Back Again, A Hobbit's Tale by Bilbo Baggins. But so they're going on an adventure. Finally confirmed.
Yep.
We don't know where.
In the last 4 chapters.
We still don't know where.
It's incredible.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was Misery.
Mm-hmm.
And the next chapter is The Bloody Nine.
Chapter 44. Now, we had a comment on YouTube that this was one of our followers' favorite chapters, and they couldn't wait for us to get here.
Yep, I did read that interaction. I saw there was a comment on there, and so I knew that this chapter was coming, and so I've been anticipating it, and it was probably the most action-packed chapter of the entire book. Definitely the climax.
Oh, for sure.
This was the climax, which I want to talk about sometime. Maybe that could be a podcast topic that we dive deeper into, like book structure versus like movie structure. I feel like with a few outliers, well, a lot of the books that I've read recently as a part of this and just in general, like the falling action is not very long at all. Like it's like climax and end, you know?
I will say that we've also read the first book of trilogies.
Oh, it was Dragonlance? Is that a trilogy?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's
so
crazy.
That might make a difference, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, The Bloody Nine. Really looking forward to this chapter, and it didn't disappoint. It was crazy. It was nuts.
This chapter does flip back and forth between Logen and Jezzel. Very brief Jezzel interactions, which is really just adds so that we know like the time of how this is all happening. So,
and it really just kind of added to the humor of the Logen stuff. So yeah, starting at the beginning, it is a Logen chapter mostly. Yeah, so it starts off they're all in the room with Bayaz minus Pharaoh, and Bayaz is like, "Where's the girl? We can't leave without the girl. Logen, go get her."
Right. But before that happens, I think this is important because it'll come back later.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Logen is like deciding that he needs to build a relationship with Jezzel if they're going to be adventurers together. Like it's important for them to have this established relationship if they're going to go fight side by side ever, which is valid. So he tries to talk to Jezzel, and Jezzel is just not interested in being friends. So he like shuts him down real quick. So then Logen goes and tries to talk to Kwai, who is so depressed that he can't muster a conversation with Logen.
No, which is odd.
Because they're returning to his home, apparently. Which is bloody and lawless, he says. He is not looking forward to going back there.
Yeah, it's called like the Old Empire, and it's like there's emperors that rise and fall like every other day, and it's just a big warring state of chaos. So it should make for an interesting book next for the next.
Yes. And then that's when Bayaz notices that Pharaoh is missing, and he sends Logen out to fetch her.
Yeah. Really quick, the interaction between Logen and Jezzel, I thought was just so funny because of just Jezzel he tries so hard to make himself unlikable. It's outstanding. Because the conversation, like Logen is trying so hard, and he's not really a talker, right? He doesn't even speak their language. Like it's not he's like trying to use a second language first of all, and he's just trying to be friendly, trying to get to know him, and he's like, well, one man's thoughts are worth just about the same as another's in my book, and Jezzel's like, well, that's where we see differently. So it's just like Jezzel has such a superiority complex right now. It's it's amazing. Like good grief.
He's such a dope.
Anyway, Logen gets sent off to collect Pharaoh. And as he's looking for her, he finds her like in the middle of a group of 3 black masked individuals who we the readers know are practicals because that's their garb. They wear the black masks. So she's about to be scooped up by these practicals, and Logen has to run in and interfere. Although, like, before he can even get close, she tackles one and like punches him in the face 3 times. Like,
oh yeah, she's doing a perfectly fine job defending herself, but he does like jump in and help
because it's still 3 on 1. You know, like And one of them is the red-haired practical that we had met briefly before at the university as one of Goyle's henchmen. We see pretty much all of them in this chapter. I think they were all mentioned, like of the practicals that we saw in the university.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say, we don't see Glokta's practicals at all.
No. Specifically Goyle's practicals.
Yes.
All of them were in use for this mission to try to scoop up Pharaoh. Yeah, it's chaos ensues, we'll say. There's some really, again, Joe Abercrombie is really good at writing fight scenes. I've noticed, like everything, it feels high stakes. There weren't very many moments where I thought that it was dragging, which can happen in fight scenes. It's like, okay, let's just get to where this needs to be, but it all felt pretty high stakes.
Yeah, and it helps that it was a fight scene and a chase scene. So like they're running, and they're being intercepted, and like they're hitting a lot of different obstacles as they go. So that made it interesting.
Yeah,
and we learn pretty quickly that Pharaoh is faster and stronger than Logen.
For sure, faster. I don't know about, like, if they arm wrestled, Logen might win, but
stronger. I mean, in like.
More durable, like endurance.
More durable, yeah.
She does more cardio.
Yes. She does a lot more cardio, and she also deals a lot more damage, at least early on.
Yeah.
Early on. Later, things, we'll get there.
Yeah.
But at first, it seems like Logen is just like really trying to just keep up with this girl.
Yeah.
And he needs more help than she does in a lot of ways.
Like, she's like this parkour master. She's jumping off roofs and running on rooftops and trying to get away from these practicals, and he's just trying to keep up, and he's running and jumping off roofs, and he's like almost falling to his death a couple times.
And like seriously injuring himself.
Yeah, he messes his ankle up, landing wrong. The funniest part though, they're like in this chase trying to get away from the practicals, and she runs and jumps onto a roof and like does a roll, and he does the same thing. He tries to replicate it. And he jumps, he makes it, sticks the landing, does a roll, and he's like, "Oh, what do you think of that?" But then the roof can't support their weight, and the roof caves in on them. It was so funny.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, and the whole time, Logan's just thinking, I'm still alive. I'm still alive. I'm still alive.
Yeah. Because he's like, I'm about to die. I'm about to die. I'm about to die.
Yeah. Yep. And there's like one point where he makes a jump and he doesn't make it. Like he's just hanging on to the edge of this like building, and he just keeps saying like, someone help, someone help, someone help,
help.
And finally, like Pharaoh hauls him back up. This is where I say she's stronger, because she was able to pull this huge Northman up over a building after running for who knows how long and like doing all this stuff. And he's pretty. That's right before they fall through the roof.
Yeah.
And he seems pretty shocked that she can even assist him at all. But she does get him back on the roof. And
really quick before we get into, because when they fall through the roof and once they're in that room, that's kind of the final confrontation. Before we get to that though, so as they're having this chase scene, it's when we have these moments where it cuts back to Jezzel occasionally. And there's one in particular I want to talk about where he's just, Jezzel is staring out a window brooding about, oh, how much I miss Artie and my life is miserable and I hate myself. And this is all juxtaposed with this crazy fight with Logen and Pharaoh, and they're like fighting for their lives. And then Jezzel's just staring out a window like, oh, woe is me, I wish I didn't exist, and all this stuff. And it's just like, dude, you have no idea what other characters are going through right now. I need you to shut up. But,
my only note for that Jezzel POV is he's miserable. And then I went right back to the Logen.
Yeah. But we did have a really funny interaction with Longfellow. That's his name, right? Or is it Longfellow, the guide.
Brother Longfellow. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Brother Longfellow.
And he notices that Jezzel is brooding. And he's like, hey, what's wrong, buddy? Oh, it's about a lady, isn't it? And he just like knows right away. And Jezzel like tries to stop him. Like, no, shut up. It's not about that. And he's like, oh, it's a forbidden love. someone that you want but cannot have. And then Jezzel's like blushing and all this stuff. And it was it was hilarious. And Longfellow even says, I forget how they get to this point, but He's like, wouldn't that be crazy if that's where Logan and Pharaoh are right now, going and doing
Yeah.
what they think seems natural, and
Mm-hmm.
and then at that suggestion, it cuts back to them like fighting for their lives against these practicals.
Yes.
It's just so funny, very
Yeah.
well done, Joe Abercrombie, with that
Yes.
juxtaposing of those scenes. That was exceptional.
For sure. Totally agree.
So yeah.
Totally agree.
Anyway, so they fall through a roof, and then things get nuts.
Yeah. Logan thinks he's done. Like, he thinks he's dead.
Yeah, like they fall through, and they have this moment where they're trying to like prepare because they know they're about to get followed in here, and he
Mm-hmm.
pulls a antique sword off the wall, kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean, where like Elizabeth Swann pulls the sword off the
Mm-hmm.
wall. It was like that, only like it actually worked.
Right. Yeah.
Except
It
for
was
the
a real
sword.
sword.
The sword is like ornamental and dull, but he's like,
Right.
whatever, it's something. So, in judging how the rest of the chapter goes, I couldn't even imagine how it would have went had he an actual sharp sword. But could you imagine?
Uh-huh.
It would have been a rough time for everyone. But yeah, there are more practicals that rush in. Another fight ensues until eventually he is backed into a corner and he thinks that he is donezo. And this is when we
Mm-hmm.
see the full ensemble of practicals that we had seen before with Goyle. There was the red-haired girl who's been kind of there the whole time, and Logan really messes her up occasionally, but she's
Mm-hmm.
still alive. There's one with dark skin with daggers, and
Mm-hmm.
there's another one that's like a really huge Northman type, and I think there's one more too, who is escaping me. But it was basically the Goyle posse, who is now here to try to kill Pharaoh and Logan. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. The Northman's name is Stone Splitter.
Stone Splitter, yes.
He's
Thank
like,
you.
I think he's the last one that Logan ends up fighting. But
Yes, yeah.
or I shouldn't even say Logan because it's not Logan.
Mm.
So he thinks he's done, and then he has this cold feeling in his stomach, and this is where he goes Jekyll and Hyde on us.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly we have Mr. Jekyll, or
Yeah, I think
I don't remember which
whichever
one's
one's
the doctor and which
nuts.
one's Mister.
Yeah,
The crazy Jekyll is the bad one,
yeah.
I believe. And the Bloody Nine emerges, and
Mm.
it's like another personality that he's channeling, something very dark and dangerous. And this gave me more questions.
Mm-hmm.
So many more questions. Because the way he describes seeing these practicals that he's fighting, he's seeing them as like one more kill. Like one more kill until they're all gone, and then just Pharaoh's in the room. And he goes to attack her, or thinks about it, and she's just staring at him.
Yeah.
And then something, I think they said like a quiet voice in his head is like, she's with us.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't attack her. And there's a moment where he talks about how, like in his internal dialogue, he says something like the Bloody Nine had broken Three Tree and Black Dow. What does that mean?
I think
Because they're still alive.
Yeah, I think broken in the sense that like tamed. Kind of like how you tame like a wild horse, like saddle broken. Like
Okay.
he incorporated them into his group, but in order to do so, he probably had to beat them in a fight or something. That's how I
Okay.
interpreted that.
Interesting. Because
Yeah,
the way he's been breaking all
yeah,
of these practicals, and by breaking I mean killing,
brutally
I
killing.
think. So I was like, but they're still alive, unless they're not really alive. And we've actually been following along with
The spirits that Logan's been talking to by the fire.
spirits.
Oh, that'd be a twist.
Yeah, I don't know. So really strange.
Mm.
And then he faces Stone Splitter, which that was a whole thing. Which I think that maybe prompted his like thinking about, like, he wasn't intimidated by Stone Splitter because he had broken these other Northmen previously.
Mm-hmm.
And he's victorious. And then Logan's back and super hurt, like very injured and just crying in pain.
Mm-hmm. So there's
it's just bonkers.
Yeah. So okay, my turn to talk about this now. So
yes. Well, I was hoping you would interject and then you weren't, so I was like, well,
no, I was just like,
talking.
I will let her finish and then I will ramble for my part. So yeah,
I'm here for it.
He's surrounded by Goyle's goons, the Goyle goons. That's it. We call them that from now on.
I love it.
And it's like when he flips the switch and goes bloody 9, he is like a different person. It's truly like alternate personality, and that's really fascinating.
Even in the writing, they just refer to him as the Bloody 9 from then on.
Yeah.
They don't call him Logan anymore.
I did not see that coming from a mile away. Like I didn't
either.
I thought that he was just wrestling with a dark past. I didn't realize that this was like another persona that takes over when he's in the thick of it. That totally changes like his character. Like so much more complex than I thought. He was already complex, but now that's just a whole other like thing that we have to worry about now going forward. Like when is it gonna flip and when is he gonna go bloody 9 on us? Like that is a really interesting. What's the word? It's a really interesting thing that we're gonna have to like
juxtaposition.
Okay.
Juxtaposition
Between
like
who?
Two things that are between Logan and the Bloody 9.
Oh yeah.
Is that not what you meant?
Well, no. Oh, implication. Just for the future books of like we're gonna have to be thinking about that now whenever he's in a fight. If he ever starts to lose, it's like, oh no, here he comes.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just when he comes to being bloody 9, and it's my understanding that alternate personalities like this manifest themselves as a what's the word? It's like a defense mechanism, a mental defense mechanism, because they're trying to protect the other personality from a certain situation. So, and from the research that I did on this like a while ago, this like correct me if I'm wrong. This is just my understanding right now. It's usually something that happens to you as a child, like a traumatic event, and then you'll have an alternate personality that will occasionally take over to protect you from certain situations, like having an alter.
Sure. Yeah. Like in a real world application,
right?
Like there are people that exist with these split personality disorders.
I think it's called. I think now it's referred to as dissociative identity disorder, but
or
we
it
have
could
multiple
be borderline personality. There's a few different ones, and I am certainly not educated enough to like speak as an expert on.
So it's my theory. It's my theory right now that he must have had some traumatic experience when he was younger where he had to fight, and then the bloody 9 takes over as like that persona when he is fighting for his life sometimes. So that's like my real world interpretation of like what is happening.
I think that if this did exist like in a real world, that would be, and maybe that is what's happening. My
it could be a weird magic
something
thing.
More magic related.
It could be a weird magic thing, or it could be like a real world trauma thing. I guess time will tell. We don't know yet.
Or it could be both.
Fair, yeah.
So
maybe he's possessed. I don't know. Like, we don't know. Maybe that's the consequence of him talking to the spirits. Maybe this is like a spirit taking over or something.
Maybe.
So there's so many different avenues it could go down. Like, I have so many theories in my head right now.
It is super interesting because now that we know this, that the Bloody 9 is like an alternate personality for him, for lack of a better term at this point. The things that we learned earlier in the book about his past and things that, because when he thinks about his past, he thinks about them as things that he did, which he did do these things. But it makes me more compassionate for him if it's like a spirit that's taking over him when this happens, or if it's a split personality situation. Like, it makes the Logan part of him more
you're more sympathetic.
I am more sympathetic towards him. Yes.
He's a little more innocent in my eyes.
Yes.
Like he's still, I mean, I don't think there is such a thing as an innocent person in this series,
No.
but he is
No.
at least more
agree.
so, more so than most. With the Bloody Nine business. But anyway, so that's my just a reaction to the fact that it's a split personality thing. But then going into like how he just methodically destroys these practicals. Like the first one with the daggers, just like one swing of the sword and he breaks both his knees. Like he just goes nuts. It's not even a challenge. He even says that. He's like, "This is who you send against me. This is nothing. This is an insult." And when he sees them, he doesn't even register them as people, or as he just says, "Oh, look, another corpse," and then he kills them. Like it's so dark. Yeah. It's so dark.
Yeah, you reminded me when he goes up against Stone Splitter. He says, "This is who you send against the Bloody Nine," and Stone Splitter's like, "Why are you conjuring that name? Like, why would you like even pretend to be the Bloody Nine?"
He says
that's ridiculous.
He's like, I kind of heard his voice as like kind of the big dumb giant type voice, like, "Why you say Bloody Nine? He's dead. Why you try scare me with Bloody Nine name? Me kill you." Like that's how I kind of envisioned his voice being. But it was like the mental image where he says like, "I'm the Bloody Nine," and like Joe Abercrombie paints this crazy image of him like holding up his finger or his hand that's missing the finger, and you can see his smile through the gap in his hand where his finger used to be. It's just so metal. Like it's just like cue guitar solo and like electric guitar starts playing, like Mad Max music starts going.
But even that's not enough for Stone Splitter. He's like, anyone could have lost a finger. Like, that's not a big deal. Which is true.
Plenty of Northmen have lost fingers. You're stupid. Let's fight. And then they fight. And then he gets destroyed. Of course. Like, they get in a grapple, which this guy's much bigger than Bloody Nine is. So you're like, okay, this should be a tough situation. But no, the Bloody Nine just headbutts him to death. Casually, just repeatedly, and the way that he kept describing the headbutts was so like dark. Gross. But the writing was so good, but it was so dark. Like he was like, I'm like a woodpecker, thud, thud, thud. Like it's like, oh my gosh, this is brutal.
Yeah, and then, it was gross.
so that's an explanation of why, like what you said, and then it's back to Logen, and then it's like, and the Bloody Nine is also just like grasping to stay in control. He's like, no, not enough time. There's never enough time. There's more people I want to kill. Like he wants to kill Pharaoh for sure. Like if he'd stuck around, he would have totally, I think, killed Pharaoh.
I think it's Logen that's like telling him, no, not that one. That one's ours.
Yeah, for sure.
That one's with us.
For sure. And and as he's going, he's like, there's not enough time. There's never enough time. And then it's Logen, and then it's just pain. Like
and he's just screaming and crying in pain.
Yeah. He during that fight he also got like stabbed in the back by a dagger, and he like he took a lot of hits, but he just didn't register them when he was Bloody Nine. And now that he's back to being Logen, it's just pain. So that was
to the point where Pharaoh like covers his mouth to silence him. Because she's like, "You're gonna draw more people here."
Shut up, Pink. Yeah, she's been calling him Pink this whole time.
Yeah, and there was an exchange early on where he asked her,
about the colorblind thing.
Color thing, and
because she doesn't see like, any color whatsoever. So he's like, "How do you know that I'm pink?" And she's like, "Are you pink?" And he's like, he like looks at his arm, and then he's like, "Kinda," and she's like, "Thought so."
Yeah,
it was just a really funny moment. I mean, funny racist moment with Pharaoh, but
well, okay, so I thought it was interesting how the beginning of this chapter starts with Logan wanting to like build a relationship so that he can easily fight alongside these people if he needs to.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the end of the chapter, he and Pharaoh have done as much fighting together as he has with anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they
And
almost died together.
They almost died together, and she basically drags him back to Baez.
Mm-hmm. As a bloody ruin. Like,
right. And part of me thinks that the Pharaoh of, the first chapter we meet her in would not have cared about him. She would have just left him.
That's an interesting point. Well, because she is fiercely dedicated to the people that are in her group, though, because we knew that from the get-go that she was incredibly loyal. Like, she didn't like them, but she still gave them burials when they died. So I think that since she is in this group, even if she doesn't necessarily like Logan, she keeps calling him a pink, and like she doesn't like, quote, the pinks, but they're in the same group, and so it's like ride or die. We're gonna I'm still gonna help you.
Yeah. Well, and I think the fact that he was willing to do the same for her, like he didn't have to interfere when those practicals first attacked her in the street, but he did.
It's tough to say exactly what would have happened if he'd never interfered, because like on one hand, could she have overpowered those 3 practicals and gotten away? Maybe, but there were definitely more waiting in the wings.
Sure. That's not really the point that I'm trying. My point is that I think the fact that he did intercede on her behalf has solidified in her mind that they are, in fact, in this together, on a team together.
Yeah. I was just trying to think. I was just trying to think in my head, was Logan like holding her back this whole time? Could she have just gotten away if he hadn't done anything? Like he might have
maybe
he might have kind of just stepped in it there, and then the Bloody Nine wouldn't have emerged.
And we would never know.
It would have been less entertaining of a story, but it would have been less destructive.
Yeah.
But then
it also would have gone against his character to not interfere, because he's stepped up and interfered anytime he's seen any kind of injustice so far. Or at least tried to.
Yeah. So then after this, though, once they arrive back at their chambers, is my favorite part of the entire book, and that is, they come in, and then the practicals are right behind them. The red-haired practical, that was Goyle's goon, is right behind them. He's like, you guys are coming with me. And she's like so just worn out and defeated. It's like, you're funny.
Yeah.
Like, you're funny. Jezzel draws his sword, and he starts to consider like knocking out Logan and Pharaoh and handing them over to the practicals, because he's like, he works for the Union. Like, he's a Union soldier.
Yeah. He's very conflicted through this whole thing.
Yeah. And the practicals... Because
he raises it in support of the practicals, and then realizes that it looks like he's supporting Baez.
Yeah, like
and
he's
then he
about
just gets
to
very
defend.
confused.
Yeah. And it's in this moment of him having this like internal conflict, and the practicals being like, drop your sword, and he's like, wait, what? I was on your side. And then that's when Baez, because before he was like, I'm taking a bath, I don't know when I'm going to have another bath, while he waits for Logan to get back. He just storms out butt naked, just letting everything hang loose. He just storms out, water dripping off his beard,
and everything.
And everything. And he's like, what the F is this? Like, literally.
He's so mad. So mad.
It's so funny. Oh man. It was so
Gandalf
funny.
would never.
Right, I was just picturing if someone had interrupted Gandalf taking a bath, like by trying to kill his hobbits, and he just storms into the room. What the F is this? And then he just says, my patience is over, and he just explodes one of them.
Yeah. My note is, one of the practicals bursts apart. Eek. It's very gross.
Well, I mean, we saw Yulwei turn someone's bones into water.
Yeah, we shouldn't be surprised by these displays anymore.
It's just crazy.
Here we are.
So yeah, it was. I mean, it wasn't a practical that we knew. It was pretty much a red shirt.
Yeah.
The red-haired one is safe. So he explodes a practical, and they
leave.
They are everywhere.
The person exploded is everywhere.
And
but
all over...
The rest of the practicals leave.
Yeah, they're kind of like stunned and take a few steps back and then run away quickly. So...
And then Baez tells Brother Longfellow to clean up Logen, which he gets to Logen and then just stares at him like, where do I even begin?
Yeah.
He's such a mess. And then our boy Jessel finally realizes that his past worries are petty things.
Way to go.
It took all of that.
Way to go, buddy. You figured it out. Oh, my life is horrible. Oh, no. Get over yourself. So I'm glad that he had that humbling moment, you know.
Yeah. It was a great chapter.
It was incredible. It was definitely the strongest chapter of the book. I mean, so that chapter and Glokta and West reuniting and rekindling their friendship, those are my two favorite chapters in this book. For sure. Yeah, man, that was a great chapter. So, that was a good call, dear listener.
Yes.
Your name escapes me. I apologize. But drop a comment.
You know who you are.
Happy to interact with you again.
We appreciate you.
Yeah. More than happy to interact with you again if you leave a comment on the video. Great chapter. Thanks for the heads up. It was awesome. So, yeah. So, the next one, the tools that we have, is that what it's called?
The tools we have. Chapter 25.
Yep.
The last chapter.
The final one. Glokta chapter.
Ending with good old Glokta.
I'm going to say something controversial. Okay. I think Glokta is my favorite POV.
You know, it's between him and Logen for me.
Yeah. I think he's the most entertaining, personally. I think it's because of the internal dialogue that we get to see with Glokta that we don't get to see as much of with other characters. Like, it's just very entertaining. I think he's the most entertaining POV character to read. But
yeah. His early chapters were pretty disgusting, mostly because of the torture aspect. But he hasn't been doing that as much, and I like him better now.
Right.
I'm sure that'll come back around, but Glokta as, like, a person, I enjoy. Reading.
Yes.
I don't know if I
wouldn't be friends with him in real life.
You know what I mean. Right. You know what I mean. He's entertaining to read.
Yep.
And Logen, I just have so many questions about.
For sure. Yeah.
Like, so many questions.
Yeah. So anyway, the final chapter.
Starts out with Glokta checking on Artie, like he promised West he would do. And she's still really beat up. And he immediately clocks exactly what happened. He understands why West was in his room, why he was upset, why he was in tears. He knows exactly what happened.
He probably knows about their father. Like,
yeah, maybe.
Because I'm sure that he either witnessed things or West had told him about their father being abusive. Like, I wouldn't be surprised anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. Because, I mean, Artie is going to pretty great lengths to keep it hidden.
True.
It's hard to say with parents and abusive parents, like, what a child...
What their kids would say. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
That's true. Yeah, you're right.
So, he may or may not know about their past. But... and in this interaction, he decides pretty quickly that he really likes Artie. Like, he enjoys her presence. And she's very amusing to him. And then Glokta points out the duality of purity culture.
He does.
He's like, straight up, we expect these women to, like, remain, like, pure and whole, quote unquote, for their potential spouse, but we encourage and let men do whatever they want. Yeah. And I was like, Glokta, my man, I'm liking you more and more.
Yeah.
Thank you for noticing the misogyny in that.
Pointing out the double standard, and yeah.
Yeah.
That was really interesting to see. And he does say, though, like, after he says all this, like, you know, men are congratulated with the more women they sleep with, and women are looked down upon for the more men they sleep with. doesn't really make much sense, does it? But for now, I think maybe you should, like, what does he say? He's like, maybe just don't rock the boat too much for now. Um,
Yeah.
Something to that effect. So he
Yeah.
was basically like, I understand what you're saying, because she was like, oh, are you here to babysit me to make sure that I don't get with Jezel?
Or people.
Did my brother
Just
did my brother send you here to make sure that I don't sleep with anyone that he doesn't approve of? And he was like, you can sleep with whoever you want. I'm just, for the sake of how society will view you, maybe chill. I don't care who.
or keep it together.
Yeah,
I guess.
keep it on the DL.
Yeah.
Is kind of what he was saying. But he also, I really loved the interaction they had when he first noticed that she was beat up, and she said, I fell. I'm such a klutz, aren't I? I'm such a clumsy girl. Oh, what an idiot I am." And then he's like, "Oh yeah, me too. I'm such a klutz that I broke half my teeth and I ruined my own leg."
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess
And then they
clumsy people like us should stick together, shouldn't we?
yes, and that's how their interaction ends. Is
Yeah.
they've decided that as two clumsy people, they'll stick together and help each other out. So appreciated that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I gotta turn my page again, guys.
Yep.
There were lots of notes.
But then, okay, here's where I'm confused though, because he just said we should stick together, and then with this next section, he is. I mean, by the end of the next section, I'm like, okay, so they're not going to get to stick together, you know.
Yeah.
So for this next part, he gets summoned by Archlector Sult. Bum, bum, bum.
Okay. Yeah. So this next section, is a big contradiction to the last one.
Yeah. Well, not really. Well, it's just
not a contradiction.
Not going to go the way that they were wanting it to.
Yes.
But
yes.
Such is the way with these stories. Things don't go the way the characters or the readers want sometimes. But yeah, so he gets summoned to his boss, and when he gets there, there's the red-headed practical that was trying to get Logen and Pharaoh, just sitting in the chair, slumped, just not moving, looking like she's hating life. And Glokta's like, she looks like she was just in the fight of her life. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was like, be careful, he's in a mood today.
Yeah. Well, and then he walks in and Salt is still like going on a rampage at Goyle about how they sent out 20 practicals to capture a girl, and 8 of them are injured, and 7 of them are dead. And this was against 2 what he calls savages. Yeah. So being Logen and Pharaoh.
And it was funny though. He was like, and how many? He was like, so there's 8 dead, and 7 injured, which is most of them. And it was against how many? And Goyle tried to say, in all there were 6. And I was like, I hate you. It's like, you lying liar. And then, but then Salt calls him out. He's like, oh, there were 6. I heard there were 2. He just lights him up. It's very entertaining.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
Yeah. So Goyle is in deep trouble at the failed attempt to capture Pharaoh. And, yeah, he gets sent away. I don't remember exactly what he's being sent away to do, or if he's been demoted. I don't know. He's in trouble. And then Salt promotes Glokta to the Superior of Digasta.
Yeah. So, which is...
I don't know what that is.
Well, so...
Explain what that is.
I looked up a map. So...
Okay, good.
Digasta is the peninsula region that is actually... So, okay, there's the Union, which is like an island in the middle of this whole thing. And surrounding this island is like land masses, right? The Gurkish Empire is to the south, and there's a peninsula that juts off of the Gurkish Empire, and that peninsula is technically under Union control, and it's Digasta, which is like the city in there, which controls it. And the Gurkish Empire is adjacent to it, to the south, and wants it back, because that is what, they lost in that last war, the Gurkish did. And now that's under Union control. So they want that back. And that is the same conflict where Glokta was captured by the Gurkish and tortured and turned into the person he is today. So he is not super eager to be going back down there.
Right. Maybe a little triggered.
Yeah, I would be.
I would be too.
I'd be like, no thanks, I'll go north.
Yeah, send me with those guys.
But yeah, Solt is sending him down there because, I mean, he was once a soldier. He's basically, because the whoever the person was who was in charge down there for the Inquisition has disappeared. And the like the governor there might have disappeared too. I don't know. There's like corruption happening, and it's becoming a hotbed of issues. And Solt is like, I have no eyes there. I'm blind. I need you to go down there and root out the corruption, cut away the rot. I expect to be overwhelmed by your letters. You better write me. You better write me every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a situation. So, and that's why I'm like, but he was going to stay with Artie and they were going to be friends. Don't send him away. But also, like, don't take Artie with you either. That's going to be awful. She's going to die.
Yeah, there's no good way out of this situation. And then we find out that Solt is also sending Practical Vitari. Is that how you say her name?
Yeah, the redhead.
The redhead. Yeah, so she's going with him.
Who, before she worked for Goyle, she worked for Solt back when, like, he was just an inquisitor. So, yeah, interesting stuff. So, it was an interesting exchange, though, that him and the redheaded, what'd you say, what was the name again?
Vitari?
Victrola? Vitari. Practical Victrola. Yeah, she's like in this chair half dead, and she asks Glokta for a hand up. He's like, that's the first time anyone's asked me to help them up, and well, since before I got captured.
Yeah.
And he helps her up, and he's like, man, this really hurts me, but it hurts her even more. So, like, I'm enjoying this. He's like really enjoying someone else being in more physical pain than he is.
Yeah.
Like, you sadist. But
yeah. Well, then she asks if he has a cane, an extra cane.
Yeah.
He's like, no. You have to get your own.
I do not. So I think I think she'll add an interesting dynamic to his troop. Him, Frost, Severard, and yes, the new girl. So it'll be interesting.
You know what? She is giving me very strong Mara Jade vibes from the Star Wars Extended Universe.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I could see that.
Because it's the red hair and the, like, kick butt personality. Like,
I was picturing Anne Bonny from Black Sails.
They're the same.
Yeah.
They're the same character type.
Same. Yeah.
They are. I mean, honestly.
The redheaded firecracker that breaks jaws when need be. So, yeah.
Yep.
So, so that's where we ended. The Dogman and company are headed to fight against the Northmen with the Union. The main group of Bayaz and company is setting off on their adventure to the edge of the world to, I don't know, save the world, presumably.
Unclear.
Solve there's the French horn on a stick, there's the seed, there's like all kinds of weird stuff that they are trying to deal with. And then Glokta is being sent south to Dagaska, where the Gurkish Empire is likely to attack. And so it felt like this whole book was one big setup for like the actual adventure.
You know what I feel like happened? I feel like we just got through the Council of Elrond.
Absolutely. It felt like we got through book 1 of Fellowship of the Ring, and now we just got to the Ring Goes South chapter. And
now the real story starts.
Yeah. Now they're actually going to be on the adventure and trying to like solve the problems. Now that we've got all this set up, so it's like, dang it, Joe Abercrombie, now I have to read the next book because now this is when the actual plot starts. Like we have great characters. decent setting. They're all compelling. And now you finally have all the plot set up to where it needs to be, and now it's like I have to read the next book. So how dare you?
I know.
So yeah, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the whole book now that we've finished the whole thing?
I just have so many questions. I'm very curious about the world.
Mm-hmm.
And like where the story goes from here. I don't like, my biggest complaint about the Fellowship of the Ring is that it takes like a whole book before you actually get somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And even as a lover of the Lord of the Rings, I have a hard time recommending it to people because I know that the Fellowship, the first part of it, is such a slog to get through.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel very similarly about this book.
Yeah.
In some ways, that it was a lot to get through.
And I think that's
just to finally get to the story.
Yeah. I think that's a sentiment that most of the fans of this series would agree with us on, because that's, I think, because I've seen it on like Reddit and stuff. When people talk about this series, they're like, yeah, the first book catches a lot of flack because it's pretty much all just set up and nothing really happens. But once you get into the actual like meat and potatoes of the story, it's a incredible series and the characters are amazing. Basically, people rave about the character work that Joe Abercrombie accomplishes in the series.
And I think that's very fair.
Yes, me too.
So will I listen to book 2? Probably.
Maybe give it a break. Maybe just a little.
I'll probably give it a break. I have a lot of books that I want to read.
Yeah. Yep.
My TBR list is very long. Mm-hmm. But I want you to read it for sure so that you can tell me what happens.
Okay. Yeah.
If I don't read it.
Maybe
this is more your genre than it is mine.
Maybe that'll be my next Audible credit. We'll see.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, that was The Blade itself.
Yeah.
Made it through. Yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. It had dark moments, had funny moments, had angry moments.
Oof, so much rage.
Yeah.
Rage against the machine.
Had some very interesting, like, what's the word? Perspectives that reflect on current events a little too well. Yeah, social commentary. That's what I was looking for. It has some social commentary that hit a little close to home, but
yes, agreed.
Yeah, it was a good time. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I did. Ultimately, I did too.
Cool. So yeah, but for the next time, we'll be reading a new book.
Yes, we'll be reading The Light of the Midnight Stars by Rena Rossner. I will have the reading schedule posted by the time this goes up. So you will have probably already seen it if you follow it on our social media, Twitter, Facebook, or Patreon. So
awesome. Well, it was fun. It was a good time.
It was fun. I'm glad we read it. Thank you for picking it.
Yes. Just broadening.
Feel my horizons.
Broadening the horizons. Yeah.
Yes.
More genres, more subgenres of fantasy to dip your toes into. So
it's great.
I'm just trying to make you a better writer, by
I appreciate that so much.
Forcing you to read things you wouldn't normally read.
And I really didn't hate it.
I know you didn't. Yeah. I know. All right. That sounds good. So, until next time, happy reading.
And we'll talk at you next time.
Later.
Bye.